We don't need to have great esoteric training to make these inner contacts. We're all divine. We've all got that contact. And I've had some examples of that more recently. A couple of years ago, a member of the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States, EPA, came to me and thanked me for my work. I thought, what? Couldn't understand that at all. And I got the story eventually, that she was a research scientist, and she was trying to find out how polluted Puget Sound was, which is a sound up near Seattle where I've been living. And what they were doing were they were scraping the bottom of the sound, find out the life forces that were there, to find these indicator species, which would give them tell them how much they were amiss, how much polluted they were. So every day they went out on a boat, put down a net, dragged it along the bottom of the sound and pulled it up when it was full. And they found all sorts of sea life, which they pulled up from the bottom, which died immediately on reaching the air. But no indicator species, nothing at all. And this went on for almost a week. And she was getting just sick at heart. She was just all she was doing was killing life and not learning anything, not getting anything. Well, she'd heard somewhere that there was an intelligence in nature. And she thought, well, she just didn't want to go on. She said, if there is an intelligence in nature, I'm asking, please, I need to know such and such. And she precisely said what she needed to know. And she went out the next day, having made that sort of plea, and they put out the net, and it seemed to be rather empty, but they dragged it along, still seemed rather empty and light, but they eventually pulled it up. She thought it was empty, but just examined it, and just in the corner was that indicator species and nothing else. It was a miracle. But they did it again, and the same thing happened again. And so she was able to finish her work and find out how far the pollution had gone in Puget Sound. And so she heard about Findhorn after that. She came here and she loved the place, although she was rather upset that we weren't using more connection with the intelligence of nature. And the second story I heard about that time was of another research scientist who was trying to purify water, wastewater, through various vegetations. And he'd been doing this for several years, and he had great vats of water with different vegetation in it, doing the clearing and other life. And some sort of virus, microbe. No, that wouldn't be the right word. Some sort of algae or something got into that tank, and he couldn't get rid of it. He tried everything. He tried another species to eat it up. It didn't work, and it took over and stopped his whole series. He'd had years of work by ruined. He couldn't finish it, and he just sort of gave up. He said he'd done all he could. He gave up his agenda, and he said, I'm asking for help. I need help. And the next day he went out, and that particular microbe, virus, algae was gone, and he could finish his series. The same thing, he didn't have to have a great esoteric training. You're just asking for help from the universe, which means that we're giving up our own agenda, giving it over to a higher power, which is another way of what we're saying, connecting with the sacred. And the third story at this time was a friend of mine, Roger Collis in Washington State, was working for the state of Washington, working for the nuclear energy at Hanford, the worst polluted space in the States, which is all sorts of vats and tons and thousands of different kinds of nuclear waste which have been poured away into vats and mixed together, making sort of new chemicals. They did not even know what they've got because all this waste was just dumped together. And they had an enormous amount of it, didn't know what to do with it, didn't know what they had. So they started a state-of-the-art laboratory to try and test exactly what the chemicals were that they'd been making. And Roger went to the opening of this lab, and he was sitting there while some children were singing, and he became aware of all the life forces of the area, the life forces of the people, the plants, and of nuclear waste, the angels of nuclear waste. And they said, we want, and these particular angels communicated with him and said, we want to help you, but you must ask us. We want to help humanity, but they must ask and come to us. Roger didn't tell me this story. He said that he wanted me to go. Could I communicate with the angels of nuclear waste at Hanford? And I said, well, I'd have to go there because I don't know their energy. I don't know what they are. And he tried to arrange it a few times, but it never worked out. But looking back, I realized it wouldn't have been much good for me to go because I haven't got the scientific mind which could put it into scientific terms, the solution for what would be needed to deal with the nuclear waste. We need the scientific minds that are going to do it. And so the first, Franz Stefan, the first one, the EPA scientist, and I did give a talk to some sort of people in Edinburgh last year, hoping there were some scientists there that would be open to this approach. I don't know what happened. I just know that it's time for the scientific world to be open to a new way of finding solution to their problems. I think they always had been. Didn't Einstein say Edison saying it's 98% perspiration and 2% inspiration? At least they were open to the inspiration. But I think that is a time has come for the scientific minds to take in a new approach to help to transform the earth, to restore the earth and transform it. Another thing, we can't get stuck in the action. Whatever action we have to take with these things, one gets stuck in a mindset one way or the other. We've got to keep absolutely open. Things change. Even the direction we're taking at a certain time has got to change. And what we did at Findhorn was a wonderful model of how we had to keep on asking and getting different help from the different aspects of life for what we had to do. And the environmental and the physical work is important, but we need to design a future in cooperation with these inner beings, the beings of electricity, the beings of plastic, the beings of all sorts of things. We may have, for example, solar panels, but we think of the solar panels as just things. If we can think of them as living beings and thank them for what they're doing, if we can see the divine in everything and thank it and work with it, in that sense, it is part of the divine life. This table is divine. We can think of all these things in a different way, and so we bring out a different relationship, a relationship we become fully creative with, become part with, because we're all sharing this divine life.